The wind blew hard through the rocky cliffs. Snowflakes danced in the air, sharp and cold. The human man, Reed, pulled his coat tighter and climbed carefully over the frozen ground. His boots crunched on the icy stones as he searched for old scrap metal near the abandoned mining site. Reed had come to this planet to collect junk and trade it back at the human outpost. It was lonely work, but he was used to it. He liked being alone. No noise, no orders, no lies, just silence and stars. But that day, the silence broke. He paused. There it was again, soft whimpering, like someone crying. Reed stood still and listened. The sound was coming from the mouth of a dark cave nearby. He stepped closer, slowly. The cave looked like nothing at first, just a hole between two cliffs. But as he moved inside, his flashlight caught something. Movement. He raised the light and froze. In the corner of the cave, huddled against the stone wall, was a thin alien woman. Her skin was a pale shade of blue, cracked and bruised. Her long hair was tangled and dusty. She looked weak, her breathing shaky. Two small children were curled up beside her, clinging to her legs. Their eyes were wide with fear. The youngest one was coughing. When the light touched them, the woman flinched and quickly raised her arms, trying to shield her children. She whispered something in a broken voice, words Reed didn't understand. Reed took a slow step forward and lowered his flashlight. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not here to hurt you." The woman didn't answer. She just stared at him, lips trembling. She looked too tired to speak. Reed could see the fear in the children's eyes. They weren't just cold, they were starving. Their clothes, if they could be called that, were thin rags. Their tiny hands were shaking, and their cheeks were sunken. He knelt down slowly, keeping his distance. He opened his pack and pulled out a protein bar, then another, and a water flask. He placed the food gently on the ground and slid it toward them. "Eat," he said. "It's safe." The children looked up at their mother. She gave a tiny nod. The older child crawled forward first, grabbed the food and gave it to the younger one. The little one took small bites, like he wasn't sure it was real. Reed stayed silent. He knew not to push. After a minute, the woman reached for the water, her hands shaking so badly she dropped it once before catching it again. She drank only a little, then gave the rest to her children. Reed watched. She was thin, too thin. Her feet were bare and bleeding. Her eyes were full of pain and fear, but also something else. She was protecting her children. Even here, at the edge of death, she was still fighting for them. "You can't stay here," Reed said quietly. "It's too cold. You won't survive the night." The woman looked at him. Her lips moved and she whispered something in a voice so soft he could barely hear it. "Don't take them." Reed blinked. He shook his head. "No, I'm not taking them. I want to help." She didn't answer. A moment later, her body swayed, and she collapsed. Reed rushed forward, catching her before her head hit the stone floor. She was burning with fever. "Damn it," he muttered. He looked at the kids. "Help me, we need to carry her." The older child stood up slowly, trying to be brave. Reed wrapped the woman in his spare blanket and lifted her carefully onto his back. She was light, too light, like a bag of bones. "Come on," he said to the children. "Stay close." They followed him without a word. The walk back was long and cold. Reed kept his eyes on the path and held the woman tightly. The children walked beside him, silent and scared. By the time they reached his small shelter, a metal pod with heat and supplies, the sky was turning dark. He placed the woman gently on the bed and covered her with another blanket. Then he handed warm soup to the kids, who ate with small, quiet bites. Reed sat down near the door, watching them. He didn't know who they were. He didn't know what had happened to them. But he knew one thing. They didn't belong out there, dying in a cave. They belonged somewhere safe, and until he found out more, they were staying with him. The room was quiet. A low hum came from the small heater, and a soft light filled the shelter. The alien woman's eyes opened slowly. At first, she didn't move. Her vision was blurry and her body ached. The blanket around her felt too warm, too soft. For a second, she forgot where she was. Then it all rushed back, the cave, the children, the stranger. Her heart raced. She sat up fast, but dizziness hit her like a wave. She clutched her head and winced. Her skin was dry, her lips cracked. Her body was weak. Then she heard it. Laughter. She turned her head. Across the small room, her two children were sitting on the floor. The older one was feeding the younger with a spoon, helping him sip warm soup. Both looked better, less pale, less scared. They were safe. A tear slipped from the corner of her eye. Then she saw him. The human. He was sitting near the door, repairing some wires with his back to her. He looked tired but calm. His tools lay beside him and his hands moved with steady skill. She stared at him, unsure what to do. Why had he helped her? Why hadn't he taken anything? Her people had always said humans were cold, selfish, dangerous. But this one had given her warmth, food, safety. She tried to stand, but her knees shook. She took one step, then another, until she was close behind him. Reed turned when he heard her soft breath. "You're awake," he said gently. She didn't answer with words. Instead, she dropped to her knees in front of him, bowing her head low. "Hey, what are you—" Before he could finish, she reached for the edge of his coat with trembling fingers. "Please," she whispered, her voice shaky and broken. "Take me." Reed's eyes widened. "What?" She kept her head down. "Take me. Use me. Do what you want. But let the children stay." He was silent. She thought he didn't understand. She raised her face slowly, her eyes full of shame and fear. "You fed them. You saved us. You're kind. But kindness doesn't last. They always want something later. So, take me now." Reed stood up and stepped back. "No, I didn't help you for that." Her lips quivered. "I can't pay you. I have nothing. Just this." She touched her chest with both hands as if offering herself again. "I don't want that," he said firmly. "I want you to rest, heal. That's all." She looked confused. No man had ever said that to her, not after finding her alone and helpless. "Why?" she asked in a whisper. Reed looked toward the children. "Because they deserve a mother. And you deserve peace." She shook her head. "Peace is not for people like me. My people gave me up, said I was used, tainted." Reed didn't speak. He just walked past her, opened a small cabinet and returned with a clean cloth and a warm drink. "Sit down," he said quietly. "Let me help." Her hands trembled as she accepted the drink. She sipped it slowly, eyes never leaving his face. He was strange, too gentle to be real. Later that night, the children were asleep, curled up together on a soft mat. The woman sat by the window, wrapped in a warm blanket. Reed handed her a simple translation device. She hesitated, then placed it in her ear. "Try speaking now," he said. She nodded slowly. I am sorry for earlier. You were scared," he said. "I thought you would ask for my body, to keep the children safe." "I won't ever ask that," Reed said. She looked down. "But that's what others did, even ones who promised safety." He said nothing. After a long pause, she whispered, "I don't even have a name anymore." Reed sat beside her, leaning back against the wall. "Then we'll start fresh." She turned toward him, surprised. "Fresh? You can choose a new name, a new beginning. For you and your kids." She looked at her children, then back at him. "Why are you doing this?" she asked softly. "Why me?" He smiled, just a little. "Because I saw something in your eyes, something I've seen in war survivors, in mothers and fighters." She lowered her head. "I'm no fighter. You kept your kids alive in a freezing cave. That's stronger than any soldier." The woman didn't know what to say. For the first time in a long while, she felt something unfamiliar. Hope. Morning came with soft light pouring through the cracks in the shelter walls. The heater hummed quietly. A gentle peace had fallen over the place, but Reed knew it wouldn't last. The alien woman still hadn't told him her name. She stayed silent most of the time, except for short words like thank you or sorry. Her eyes always watched the door, as if expecting someone dangerous to walk in at any moment. But her children, they were starting to open up, especially the older one. Reed was fixing a broken food dispenser when the boy came to him, small hands holding a cracked drawing slate. "Human?" the boy said in soft, careful English. Reed looked up. "Yeah, kid." The boy sat beside him and held up the slate. On it was a simple picture. 3 figures, 1 big, 2 small. A 4th one stood far away, drawn in black, with angry red marks. "That's us?" Reed asked. The boy nodded. "Mama, me, my brother. Bad man." Reed looked closer. "Who's the bad man?" The boy swallowed. "He took Mama once, hurt her, said she was his. We hid. She came back, but she cried at night. A lot." Reed stopped working. The boy looked down. "Mama says we run again always. No one helps. But you warm. You fed us. Mama said, maybe you good, but she's scared you not stay." Reed put a hand on the boy's shoulder. "I'm not leaving." The child looked up, eyes full of questions. "Promise?" "Promise." Later that day, while the woman rested, Reed made a small meal for the kids. The younger one giggled for the first time. He was still too thin, still weak, but he reached for food now without flinching. Then out of nowhere, the older child asked, "Will they find us again?" Reed paused. "Who?" The boy looked at the door, then whispered, "The hunters." That word hit hard. "Tell me what you know," Reed said gently. The boy's voice trembled. "They call Mama returned product. Said she's broken, but still worth something. They said we belong in chains." Reed clenched his jaw. His hand curled into a fist. The boy kept going. "Mama ran after second sale. She escaped. We hid in snow caves. Then they chased us again. Mama said we'd die first before caught." Reed knelt. "Listen to me. No one will chain you, not while I'm here." The boy nodded, trying to be brave. "They have a mark on their chest, red circle with teeth." That detail stuck in Reed's mind. He had seen something like it once, on a data report from a black market group known for selling aliens as property. It was worse than he thought. That evening, the woman sat quietly, sewing her ripped tunic with thread Reed had given her. The children were asleep. Reed walked over, sat beside her, and said, "Your son told me what happened." She froze, needle midair. "You don't have to tell me everything," he added softly. "But I need to know if someone's tracking you." Her voice was low. "Yes." "Who are they?" She looked down. "Buyers. Hunters. They call themselves the Red Circle. I was taken. Twice. Escaped both times. They don't forgive that." Reed nodded slowly. "How far behind are they?" She shook her head. "I don't know. Maybe days. Maybe hours." "You're not going back to them." She looked at him, her eyes full of tired fire. "They won't stop. Not until they take me. Or kill me. Then they'll have to go through me first." A tear slipped down her cheek. "Why? Why would you fight for someone like me?" Reed stared at the children, asleep and safe for now. "Because they already see you as worthless, but I don't. And I won't let them treat you like something they can buy, sell, or break." She looked away. "But I am broken." "No," he said firmly. "You're still standing. That means you're stronger than they ever were." She covered her face with her hands and began to cry. Not loud sobs, just quiet, shaking tears. The kind that had waited too long to be free, and Reed sat beside her in silence, guarding her pain. The sun didn't rise that day. Thick gray clouds covered the sky, and a strange stillness hung over the mountains. Reed stepped outside the shelter to check his perimeter alarms. The air was sharp, quiet. Too quiet. Even the wind held its breath. Then it happened. A soft beep came from his motion sensor. He glanced at the small device clipped to his belt. Red light. Movement. East sector. Reed narrowed his eyes. No animal had triggered that. The signal was too smooth, too slow. Someone was coming. Inside, the alien woman stirred, holding her blanket tightly. She hadn't slept properly in days. Her hands trembled and her eyes remained on the door. When Reed walked in, his face said everything. "They're here, aren't they?" she asked softly. He nodded. "One person, maybe two. Close, watching us." Her face paled. "It's them." Reed walked to the weapons locker. "I'll handle it," but she stood, almost falling. "No. If they're here, it means they tracked us. They'll never stop unless they get what they came for." "You mean you?" Reed asked. She nodded. Her voice cracked. "Let me go. If I walk out alone, they might leave the children." Reed slammed the locker shut. "I'm not letting you do that." "You don't understand," she said, stepping closer. "If they get angry, they'll take the children too, or worse." "I do understand," Reed said, his voice low and steady. "But giving yourself up won't stop them. It'll only show them they can win." She looked at him, torn between fear and guilt. "I was taken twice. No one saved me. I don't want that life for my sons. I'll give myself before they suffer again." Reed stared at her. "You are not a thing to give. You're a person." "But I'm not human," she whispered. Reed stepped forward. "No, you're not, but you're a mother, and that means more than species." She couldn't hold the tears. "They called me inventory. They branded me." Reed's eyes went dark. "Not anymore." That night, she waited until everyone was asleep. Reed had set up motion alarms and sat near the door, but even he needed rest. She placed her hand over his, watching him breathe. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and then she left. Quiet steps, careful movements. She took nothing but her torn shawl. Outside, she walked barefoot toward the eastern ridge, arms up in surrender. "I'm here," she called into the cold darkness. "I came alone." From the shadows, two figures appeared, tall, armored, faces hidden under black helmets, red circle on their chests, just like her son described. One of them laughed through a voice modulator. "Third escape, girl. They won't like that." "I surrender," she said. "But don't touch the children, please." The second hunter stepped forward and grabbed her arm roughly. "They're not part of the deal." She winced. "Promise me." Suddenly, a shot rang out. The first hunter stumbled backward, sparks flying from his chest plate. Reed stood behind her, rifle in hand, eyes sharp. "You lied," she whispered. "No," he said calmly. "You just didn't give me the chance to protect you properly." The second hunter reached for his weapon. Too late. Reed fired again, this time straight to the leg joint. The alien collapsed with a growl. Reed stepped between her and the hunters. "You want her? You'll have to go through me." The first hunter pulled himself up, retreating toward the trees. "This isn't over, human." "No," Reed replied. "It's just beginning." Back at the shelter, she sat by the fire, knees pulled to her chest. She couldn't stop shaking. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she said. "You were trying to protect your children," Reed replied. "That is the right thing." She looked at him with tired, grateful eyes. "Why did you come for me?" "Because you matter," he said. "Not just to them, To me. For the first time since they met, she smiled. Faint, but real. Next time, he added, trust me before walking into danger. I'll try, she whispered. Outside the wind howled, but inside, they were warm, together. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the snow in a soft golden glow. Inside the shelter, silence lingered. The alien widow sat beside her, sleeping children brushing their thin hair gently. Her eyes were heavy, but her heart was alert. She kept replaying the night before, how Reed stood between her and the hunters, how he fired without hesitation, how he chose her, not out of duty, but something deeper. She had never seen anyone fight for her like that before. She had been traded, sold, rejected. But Reed, he fought like her life meant something, and that changed everything. Reed, meanwhile, was outside, kneeling near the tree line. He examined the footprints left by the retreating hunter. The one who escaped would return, and he wouldn't come alone next time. Reed checked the traps he had hidden under snow. Small laser-triggered snares, alert systems, proximity sensors, all made from salvaged tech. Not perfect, but good enough to slow them down. He wiped the sweat from his brow and returned to the shelter. The woman was waiting. They'll come again, she said quietly. Yes, he replied, and I'll be ready. You shouldn't have to fight my battles. Reed looked her in the eye. Then let me choose too. She didn't argue this time. Later that evening, the wind picked up, and snow started falling fast. The children slept near the heater. Reed sat by the window with a pulse rifle on his lap. The alien woman sat beside him. She finally spoke. My name, before I was taken, was Tyla. Reed turned to her. Tyla. It's a beautiful name. She gave a small smile. I didn't think I'd ever say it again. Now you have. They sat in silence for a moment. Then, beep. The outside alarm blinked red. Movement. Reed stood fast and checked the display. They're back. Tyla stood too. How many? 3, maybe 4. He brought reinforcements. Her body tensed. Then take the children. Run, leave me here. No, Reed said. I told you already. I don't leave people I care about. She looked at him confused. Care? About? He didn't answer with words, just handed her a small device. This activates the rear escape pod. If anything happens to me, use it. Get the kids to safety. I won't go without you. You might have to, he said, locking the shelter door. The first attacker came fast, firing a stun blast toward the entrance. Reed was ready. The shot hit the metal door harmlessly, bouncing off. Reed triggered his own trap, a blast mine, hidden in the snow. It exploded, throwing one of the hunters into the air. Another hunter tried to flank the shelter, but Reed had wired that side with a net launcher. The alien got caught screaming as the high-tension net wrapped around his limbs. But then the leader came, the one who escaped last time. He stood taller than the rest, armor darker, voice colder. You're just a man, the leader hissed through the comms. Why die for someone like her? Reed didn't flinch. Because someone should have before, and now it's my turn. The hunter raised his weapon, but Reed was quicker. He charged, slamming into him with full force. They rolled. Through the snow, fists swinging, weapons dropping. It wasn't clean or smart. It was raw, brutal, and Reed didn't stop. Even when the hunter struck his ribs, even when blood poured from his nose. He didn't stop until the hunter was down, breathing, but broken. Back at the shelter, Tyla watched through the window. Hands, shaking, eyes wide. She wanted to run out, but the children needed her inside. Then she saw it. Reed, limping toward the door, face bloody, but alive. She ran to open it. He nearly collapsed, but she caught him. You won, she said, voice cracking. No, he whispered. We did. She pulled him inside and laid him down. With trembling hands, she cleaned his wounds. I don't understand you, she said. You should have walked away. I'm nothing. A used slave. A broken alien. You're not nothing, he replied weakly. You're the strongest person I've ever met. Tears streamed down her face. You don't need to give yourself to anyone, Reed added. You just need someone who sees your worth. I see it. Tyla leaned down and kissed his forehead softly. Not because she was offering herself, but because, for the first time, someone had offered her freedom. Snow fell softly outside, but inside the shelter warmth grew, not just from the heater, but from something deeper. Reed lay on the bed, his wounds cleaned and bandaged. His body ached, but his spirit was still strong. Across from him sat Tyla, quiet and thoughtful. She watched him sleep for hours, her eyes full of questions she didn't know how to ask. He had nearly died for her. Again, not for reward, not for duty, but because he wanted to. She couldn't stop replaying that moment, how he stood between her and the hunters, how he bled and fought, refusing to let her go. No one had ever done that. No one had ever looked at her without shame or hunger, only kindness. When Reed finally woke, his voice was rough. They're gone? She nodded. Gone, all of them. You did it. He sat up slowly, pain flashing through his side. You're safe now? No, she said quietly. Not yet. He looked at her. What do you mean? She took a deep breath, then knelt beside him. They might return, or others. My name is still in their records. They'll always see me as something to be claimed. Reed's jaw tightened. Then we delete the records. We disappear. She shook her head. It won't matter, unless I have a claim that's stronger than theirs. Reed frowned. What kind of claim? She reached for his hand, softly with both of hers, and placed it over her chest. Her heart was beating fast. Make me yours, he froze. What? I don't mean as a slave, she said, voice trembling. Not like them. I need to belong to someone who sees me as a person, a mother, a woman with a future, not property. Reed stared at her, unsure what to say. I want to be safe, she continued. And not just for me, for my sons. If they see me bonded to a human man, they'll back off. The law protects bonded families. Tyla, Reed whispered. I know you don't owe me anything, she said quickly, and I won't force you, but if you say yes, if you call me yours, they won't touch me again. Reed looked into her eyes. They weren't pleading. They were brave. She wasn't asking to be rescued. She was asking to stand beside him, as his equal. He sat up more and cupped her cheek gently. I didn't come here to find a family, he said. But maybe the universe knew what I needed before I did. She blinked, unsure what he meant. He smiled. You, your boys, this little shelter, it all feels more like home than anything I've had in years. Her lips trembled. So, is that a yes? He nodded. Yes, Tyla. You're mine, but not because of fear. Because I choose you. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She threw her arms around him carefully, afraid to hurt his ribs. He held her close anyway. They sat there in silence, two broken souls who had somehow found healing in each other. Later that night, the bonding ritual was simple. No priest, no crowd, just two hands joined together, a spoken promise, and a quiet moment before the stars. I take you as mine, Reed whispered. Not as property, but as partner, as family. Tyla repeated the words in her soft alien tongue. Then in broken English, I am yours. Heart, body, soul. The bonding mark appeared on her palm, glowing faint gold. She looked at Reed's hand. Nothing. She gasped. It didn't work. You didn't. But Reed smiled and lifted his shirt. The golden mark was already glowing faintly on his chest, just over his heart. She pressed her forehead to his chest and laughed through tears. The children woke the next morning to find their mother smiling, truly smiling for the first time. She knelt beside them and said, "We're safe now." The older one tilted his head. "Why?" She pointed to Reed, who was cooking something over the heat plate. "Because he's not just the man who saved us, he's family now." The boy looked at Reed, then at his mother, and for the first time he whispered, "Papa." Reed froze, then turned slowly. "Yeah, kid. That's me now." The younger one giggled. And just like that, something broken became whole again. It had been 5 days since the bond. 5 quiet, warm, almost unreal days. The snow still fell outside. The mountain winds still howled at night. But inside the small shelter, everything had changed. Reed worked on repairing a broken solar panel. Tyla was humming softly while preparing a meal. Her sons were laughing, using pieces of scrap to build. Toy creatures. It looked like peace. It felt like family. But peace never lasted long. Not on this planet. Not for someone like Tyla. The warning signal came during breakfast. A soft blinking red light on Reed's console. Not a bounty hunter. Not a raider. A government ship. Official. Heavy. Unforgiving. Reed stepped outside with his binoculars. The vessel was large, dark gray, with a long tail of steam following its descent. It didn't land close. It hovered just above the far ridge, scanning the area. Tyla stood behind him, holding her son's hands. Her face had gone pale. "That's not a slaver ship," she whispered. Reed nodded. "No. It's worse. It's the registry enforcers." Her voice cracked. "They're here for me." Later that day, the enforcers arrived at the shelter on foot. 3 of them. Armored, emotionless. One held a tablet. Another wore a translator badge. "You are harboring a fugitive," one of them said to Reed, not even looking at Tyla. "She's not a fugitive," Reed said calmly. "She's my bonded partner." The leader held up the tablet. "She is still marked in the Interstellar Slave Ledger, Section 9, registered under the Red Circle Guild." "She's no one's property," Reed replied. "We don't recognize human bonding with alien Class 3 dependents without formal notice or planetary approval." Reed stepped forward. "We bonded under Clause 7 human interspecies, legal in outer colonies." "That clause is under review," the officer said coldly. Tyla stepped between them, her voice shaking. "Please, I'm not running anymore. I'm just trying to live." One officer pulled out a scanner. "We need to confirm the bond. Place your palms on this device." Reed and Tyla did as asked. The scanner blinked once, then glowed gold. "Bond confirmed." The enforcer stared at it in silence. The other 2 looked at each other. Finally, the leader said, "Bond acknowledged. Record updated. Pursuit order voided." Tyla nearly collapsed from relief. But then came the final words. "Your case will be reviewed at the next Planetary Council. If the bond is judged false or coercive, the children and the mother will be removed." Tyla froze. Reed stepped forward, voice like steel. "Try it. I dare you." The officers didn't respond. They turned and left, vanishing into the falling snow. Inside the shelter, no one spoke for a long time. Finally, the older child said, "Are they gone?" Tyla pulled him into her arms. "For now." Reed looked at her. "We'll leave this place. Go to a safer zone. One with better laws." She nodded slowly. "And if they come again?" Reed walked over, knelt beside her and took her hand. "Then they'll find a wife who won't run, and a husband who won't let go." 2 weeks later, they stood at the open market on a new human-controlled planet. People stared, not because she looked different, not because she had alien skin, but because she walked proudly beside a man who held her hand like it was sacred. Vendors smiled, children waved. One official even bowed when he saw the bond mark on their hands. And in that moment, Tyla did something she never thought she'd do in front of strangers. She turned to Reed and said aloud in perfect English, "This is my husband." The market went silent for a breath. Then someone clapped. Then another. Then more. Not for the words, but for what they meant. That a woman once sold, broken, and hunted Bierce was now free, claimed not as property but as loved, and the galaxy for once did not object.